The night before I was supposed to marry the man I loved, I had a dream so vivid it didn't feel like a dream at all. My grandfather, Arthur, who had passed away 3 years earlier, was standing in the kitchen of my childhood home. He was wearing the green flannel shirt we buried him in. He looked absolutely terrified. He grabbed my wrists, looked straight into my eyes, and said only one sentence: "Stop the wedding, Sarah. Wake up before the sun rises. Go to Julian's mother's house. You need to see this." And just like that, he vanished. I bolted upright in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. The clock on my nightstand read exactly 3:14 a.m. I was covered in cold sweat, my breathing shallow and fast. For a second, I tried to laugh it off as pre-wedding nerves. I was getting married in less than 9 hours. The florist was arriving in the morning, the dress was hanging on the door, and everyone I loved was flying in. But as I sat there in the pitch black, looking at the diamond ring glittering on my finger, a cold, heavy lump formed in my stomach. Something deep inside my gut told me that if I ignored my grandfather's warning, my life would be over before it even really started. To understand why this dream shook me so badly, you have to know about Julian. My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 29 years old, and up until that morning, I believed I was the luckiest woman alive. Julian Vance was the kind of guy people wrote books about. He was charming, successful, and had this effortless way of making everyone in a room feel special. My parents absolutely adored him. My friends constantly told me how jealous they were. Even my grandfather, back when he was still with us, had given Julian his blessing. Or at least that's what I had convinced myself of. I got out of bed, careful not to make any sound. I didn't turn on any lights. I threw on a pair of jeans, a dark hoodie, and grabbed my car keys. As I slipped out of my parents' house and stepped into the cool, damp night air, the silence of the neighborhood felt heavy. The streets were completely empty, shrouded in a thin layer of autumn fog. I started my car and began driving toward the suburbs, heading straight for Julian's mother's house. I kept telling myself I was being ridiculous, that I was chasing a ghost story born from stress. I had no idea that I was driving straight toward a truth that would completely shatter my world. Before we get into what happened when I arrived at that house, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, and you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. Also, I'm really curious, where are you watching this from right now, and what time is it over there? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading where everyone is from. Now let's get back to the story. 30 minutes later, I turned onto the quiet road leading to Julian's mother's house. Then I hit the brakes. My heart leapt into my throat. There, parked right in her driveway, was a silver sedan. It was Julian's car. Julian had told me he was staying at a hotel downtown with his best man, Mark. He was supposed to be asleep, resting up for our big day. So why on earth was his car parked outside his mother's house before sunrise? I parked half a block away under the shadow of a large oak tree. For a long minute, I just sat there clutching the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wanted so badly to believe there was a simple explanation. Maybe Mark's car broke down. Maybe Julian needed to drop off some last-minute wedding decorations. I tried to manufacture any excuse to protect the perfect illusion of my life. Finally, I climbed out and walked toward the front porch. The air was freezing, raising goosebumps on my arms. When I reached the front door, I noticed it wasn't completely closed. It rested against the frame, open just about an inch. Julian's mother was always careful about locking everything. That tiny detail made my stomach tighten. I gently pushed the door open and slipped inside. The house was strangely quiet, except for muffled voices drifting from the kitchen. I recognized Julian's laugh immediately. For a second, I felt a wave of relief. I actually started to smile, thinking I would walk in and find them having a harmless cup of coffee. Then I heard her mother speak. "Are you absolutely sure this is the right thing to do, Julian?" Julian answered without hesitation. "It's too late to turn back now." I froze. His voice didn't sound nervous at all. It sounded cold, confident, and completely calculating. Her mother lowered her voice, but I could still hear every single word.
I just don't want this to become messy, she sighed.
It won't, replied Julian. Sarah trusts me completely. She won't question a single thing until our accounts are legally connected. I pressed my back against the hallway wall, unable to breathe. My heartbeat pounded so loudly I thought they would hear it. Evelyn sighed. I still feel guilty about this. You shouldn't, Julian said. The bank is days away from foreclosing on this house, and my firm is drowning in debt. If I don't get access to her family trust in that coastal cottage, we are completely ruined. After the wedding, we'll slowly combine everything. It'll happen naturally. I gasped silently, pressing a hand over my mouth. They weren't talking about wedding plans. They were talking about me. I only hope she never discovers why you really chose her, Evelyn whispered. Julian spoke again, calm and almost amused. Once we're married, everything gets much easier. I'll play the perfect husband for a year or two. Once the cottage is in my name, we'll sell it to a developer, clear the debt, and quietly split up. Love doesn't pay the bills, Mom. My hands shook violently. The man I spent 5 years loving was ready to dismantle my life for cash. The coastal cabin was built by my grandfather, Arthur. It was my favorite place on earth, the only piece of him I had left. Almost without thinking, I pulled out my phone. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped it, but I opened the voice recorder app and captured every second of the conversation, every lie, every cold calculation. I had come looking for an explanation, but I had found undeniable proof. When their voices moved farther into the kitchen, I quietly backed toward the front door. It clicked softly behind me. Only after I reached my car did I let myself cry. Not out loud, but quiet, silent tears that blurred the windshield. As the first rays of sunlight rose over the neighborhood, one thing became painfully clear. I wasn't driving away to decide whether to cancel my wedding. I was driving home to decide exactly how I was going to do it. By the time I pulled back into my parents' driveway, the sky had turned pale gold. I sat in my car for a moment, wiped my face with my sleeve, and made myself a promise. Julian would not get the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. I walked into the house with a forced smile. My mother was already in the kitchen arranging pastries. "There she is," she said. I was starting to worry. "Just needed some fresh air before the chaos started," I replied. For the next 3 hours, I played the blushing bride. I sat there smiling as the hairstylist and makeup artist did their work, and as my bridesmaids toasted to our forever. My phone buzzed on the vanity. A text from Julian. "Can't believe today is finally the day. I love you so much, Sarah. See you at the altar." I stared at the message. Then I typed back, "Me too. Can't wait." While my bridesmaids were busy debating lipstick shades, I slipped into my father's study and shut the door. I called Thomas Bradley, my grandfather's longtime attorney. "Thomas," I whispered, "I need your help. I need to make sure Julian Vance cannot access my grandfather's cabin or my family trust. I want a complete freeze on any joint agreements we prepared." Thomas paused, sensing the gravity of my tone. "Sarah, what's going on? The wedding is in a few hours." "I'll explain later," I said. "Just make sure nothing gets signed or transferred today." "Consider it done," Thomas replied. "You're protected." By noon, the garden venue was packed. Soft music played, and over 100 guests smiled, completely unaware of what was coming. When the doors opened, everyone stood. I walked down the aisle exactly as we had rehearsed. Julian stood at the altar, looking dashing in his tuxedo. He smiled at me, that same charming smile I had fallen for years ago. Now, all I saw was a predator performing a role. My phone was hidden inside my bouquet, already paired to the sound system. I had already set things up with the DJ, telling him I had a surprise audio presentation for Julian. The officiant welcomed everyone and began the ceremony. Everything felt strangely peaceful, almost dreamlike. Then came the moment. "If anyone has a reason why these two should not enter into marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace."
I took a step back, pulling my hands away from Julian. Actually, I do. The entire garden fell dead silent. Julian laughed nervously. Honey, what are you doing? I'm making sure everyone knows the truth before anyone signs anything, I said. I pulled my phone out of my bouquet and tapped the screen. Instantly, Julian's voice boomed through the speakers. If I don't get access to her family trust and that coastal cottage, we are completely ruined. After the wedding, we'll slowly combine everything. It'll happen naturally. Gasps spread through the crowd. Julian's face turned an ash gray. He lunged toward me. Turn that off. Sarah, you're taking this out of context. My father stepped between us, his face red with fury. I calmly stepped back. I deserve a marriage built on honesty, Julian, not a financial escape plan. I handed the microphone to the stunned officiant, turned around, and walked away without looking back. I almost reached the parking lot when I heard my name again.
Sarah, wait! I turned and saw Clara Montgomery, my grandfather's closest friend for nearly 40 years. She walks toward me with tears in her eyes and gently took my hands. I am so incredibly proud of you, she whispered. Clara, I don't know what to say, I stammered. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. Your grandfather Arthur gave this to me a year before he passed. He told me to keep it unless the day ever came when you needed a reminder to trust yourself. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single handwritten note. Sarah, if someone ever asks you to ignore your instincts just to keep the peace, walk out. A loving heart should never require you to silence your own. Trust your gut. Love, Grandpa. The tears I'd been holding back finally escaped. Suddenly, my dream didn't feel like a coincidence. It felt like my grandfather's wisdom guiding me when I needed it most. Clara smiled through her tears. Walking away wasn't losing your future, sweetheart. It was protecting the life Arthur wanted you to have. 6 months later, I sat on the porch of my grandfather's coastal cabin, watching the sunset over the water. I didn't sell it. Instead, I spent the summer restoring it, painting the deck and fixing up the old dock. Every room reminded me that the strongest foundations are built on truth, not appearances. Julian tried reaching out more than once, sending pleading emails and showing up at my old apartment. I never replied. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Today, my life looks completely different than the one I thought I wanted. I learned that love isn't proven by perfect photographs or grand promises. It's proven by trust when no one is watching. Sometimes people ask if I regret walking away on my wedding day. I always smile because I didn't lose the future I dreamed about. I escaped a nightmare I never deserved. And sometimes the greatest wedding gift isn't the ring you receive. It's the truth that saves you before you ever say, I do.